When it comes to AI, businesses think of it as something complex that runs your businesses end to end. But the stats say that 95% of these AI implementation initiatives fail to deliver any measurable returns. But what if I said you that there's another part that most businesses completely ignore, and it yields the highest ROI, takes very little setup time, and you might already be having the prerequisites for it. So in this video, I'll be covering what this hidden advantage is that you can leverage in your business, and how starting with this can make every AI initiative that follows in your business much more simpler, and as a result make your business more efficient with AI. The thing is, AI can create immense value when it's implemented properly. There's no doubt about that, right? But the reason a lot of businesses fail when it comes to AI isn't always because AI isn't capable enough. It's because the businesses begin at a point where a lot of other things need to be in place before AI can start creating any real value. So what happens next is they run into unclear processes, implementation bottlenecks, security issues, permission issues, and these complex integrations that need to be in place in order for AI to actually start creating any real value. Now, this doesn't mean that the implementation doesn't work. It simply means that it's not the right place for the business to begin with. So to make sense of this, think of AI adoption as a simple hierarchy. The first is the individual layer, where AI works alongside your employees. The second is the workflow layer, where AI is embedded into an existing process. And the third is the organizational layer, where AI works across the business to surface pattern and support better decision making. Now, each of these layers can create a lot of value for the business, but the thing people miss is that the order in which you approach them can quietly dictate whether your AI initiative creates real value or becomes another failed investment. What most businesses do is they look at the value from the second and the third layer, and they jump straight into that layer without getting the individual layer first. And that's the implementation trap, because the individual layer requires far fewer prerequisites, and it creates the foundation that's required for the further layer to work properly. So let's look at what this individual layer actually is. This is the layer that's often overlooked but yields the fastest and the easiest ROI. What this essentially means is providing your existing team with the AI expertise they need to use AI alongside them in the day-to-day work. And the reason this layer is so simple is because you're not building a new process from scratch or building complex systems that handle these processes. All you're doing is enabling your team to use AI to do their work much faster. So think about it like this. A salesperson in your team would spend a lot of time researching leads, handling follow-ups, entering data in CRM. So AI can help them do all this in the fraction of time. But at the end of the day, the salesperson is the one who is managing the deal and building relationships. So something similar for marketing would be that you can use AI to analyze your previous campaigns, do customer research, do market research, and all that sort of things. But at the end of the day, the marketer is the one who decides the direction that your company needs to head towards. And that's the core idea of this layer. AI isn't taking ownership of the employee's role, it's just reducing the lot of tedious work surrounding that role, so the employee can spend more time on the paths where the judgment actually matters. The biggest advantage here is that you already have the things that's required to make this work. You already have the employees, their domain expertise, and the tools that they're using on a daily basis. All you have to do is train them on how to leverage these AI tools to work alongside them. So compared to the next two layer, the complexity is much lower and you can start seeing value much faster. Now let's say you have a team of 10 people. If AI helps each of them become even 30% more productive, you're potentially getting something closer to the output capacity of 13 people without immediately hiring 3 more employees. What this does is create more capacity within your existing team without having to add more headcount, management, and communication complexity in your business. But there's another reason this layer is very important. As your employees start using AI in their day-to-day work, you begin to see which use cases keep repeating and which parts of the process can be improved further. And once these tasks become so repetitive and non-judgmental, that's when you move from the individual layer into the workflow layer. This is where AI moves beyond assisting a single employee and becomes part of an existing process within the business. What you're doing is looking into the different parts within your workflow and identifying the parts where AI can perform better due to its speed, consistency, and its ability to process a large amount of information. Let's take an example of a customer onboarding workflow. Normally, someone has to collect documents from the customer, extract the required information, check whether anything is missing, update the internal system, and then send the appropriate follow-ups. When AI is embedded into that workflow, it can extract that information from those documents, identify anything that's missing, update the relevant fields, and prepare the follow-up message. The employee can then review the output, handle any exceptions, and make the final decision whether judgment is required. So you're not completely replacing human from the workflow. You're allowing AI to handle the repetitive and predictable parts while the employee focuses on the areas where their judgment actually matters. And what happens is the same workflow now happens a lot faster, becomes more consistent, and can handle a lot more volume without any increase in manual effort. But compared to the individual layer, this requires more setup. You need the right data, the right integration, and more importantly, the right process for it to work properly. And also, this is where getting the individual layer right first becomes more useful, because the employees can now help you make this process more efficient and help you automate this. And once AI start working across multiple workflows, the next opportunity is to connect that information and use it to understand what's happening across the entire business. And that brings us to the organizational layer. This is where AI starts working across your entire business, and the core idea behind this layer is that you take all the information that's already existing across the organization, process it, and surface pattern that would otherwise be difficult for someone to identify manually. So think about it like this, right? The sales team in your business would have a separate CRM that handles all the clients and their meeting notes. Your operation team would have a separate reporting dashboard to handle their data part. And also your finance team would have a separate software to handle their account payables and receivables. Normally all this information exists at all different places, so someone in your team would have to bring all of them together, process it, and convert it into a format that would enable the leadership team to then take decisions based on the data. So this would take a lot of effort, right? So at the organizational layer, AI can connect and analyze this information to surface patterns. It can bring together all the data into a unified place that would help leadership team to take better decisions. And the important thing here is that AI isn't making the final decision for the business. It's helping leadership understand what's happening so that they can make a better decision and informed decision based on the information available to them. And compared to the first two layers, this is the layer that requires the most preparation. Your data needs to be consistent and it needs to be accessible. Your systems need to be connected, and you need the right permission and security in place in order for it to actually work. So the organizational layer can create a lot of value if it's implemented properly. If not, it's just going to amplify the chaos that already existing with your data and systems. And this is why the order matters. The individual layer helps your employees understand where AI create values. The workflow layer turns those repeated use cases into structured process, and the organizational layer uses the information across those processes to help the entire business make better decisions. So you can see how each of the layer reinforces the next one, and how the foundation of each is the individual layer. When you start with the individual layer, your employees begin using AI in the day-to-day work, and as they use it, they start identifying which task AI performs well, which use cases keep repeating, and where it actually creates value. Those repeated use cases can then move into the workflow layer, where they become part of a standardized process. And as more workflows become connected, they start producing the information that can be used at the organizational layer to surface patterns and support better decisions. Those decisions can then flow back into the business. They help you improve the workflows and give your employees better information to work with. So each layer continues making the other layer better, creating a reinforcing loop across the organization. But there's another important part here, and that is adoption. Because even if you build the right AI system and it works as intended, there's still a chance that your team might not adopt it. Because if AI is suddenly introduced in your workflows without the team understanding what it is trying to solve or why it's being implemented in the first place, it creates resistance. And what happens next is the business spends more time on change management, training, and getting the team to actually use what's been built in the first place. So getting the individual layer right fixes a lot of that, where employees become familiar with AI before it's embedded deeper into your systems. So eventually, when you move into the workflow and the organizational layer, AI doesn't feel like sudden change that's being force-fed into them. Rather, it feels like the natural next step. And that's the advantage most business overlook. The individual layer doesn't just create the fastest and easiest ROI, it also creates the understanding, adoption, and foundation required to make every layer that follows much easier to implement. So before asking how AI can automate my entire business, start by asking how I can make the most out of my existing employees, that is, make them better. Because if you get that right, everything else becomes a lot easier.